The first test punch has been thrown, so what do we make of ARMS? What's up, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. Jake and Gabe are here. We played a boatload, an arms full of ARMS this weekend, and now we're here to give our thoughts. Previously, we had played it at the reveal event at PAX South, and Gabe at a preview event, but now that we've all played it together from our own homes with multiple control schemes, let's get down and dirty with our true thoughts after the first test punch.
I think a good way to start is with a question you asked during one of the streams. You said, has ARMS met or exceeded your expectations? Like, how do you feel about it? Do you feel the same? Do you feel better about it? Do you feel worse about it? So why don't you let us know, Zach, first, and then Jake, and I can chime in last since I've played the most.
Sure. Yeah, I think, when you play it in a quick burst, like I did at the reveal or at PAX South, it's motion control only. It's a fast fight, and it felt much more chaotic, much more party style. But after playing across the weekend, and especially after playing with the Pro Controller, you come to find that ARMS is actually a pretty intense, pretty fast-paced, pretty, I don't know if complex is the right word, or just precise, precision-driven fighter. And I really like that aspect. I feel like it's very addictive. I like the quick rounds. Granted, the test punch only has, single fight rounds instead of best of 3. But I really like that just sort of addictive nature because it's quick, because it's fast-paced, and because it's new. It's something fresh, it's something fun, and I think that they have hit they've nailed finding like a new way to make a fighting game, and that is exciting. Now, I have some issues with some aspects of it in terms of, is this game more skill-driven or more random-driven? To me, that's a little bit hard to still decipher, and I'm curious about how the other modes are going to pan out. Volleyball is definitely a party mode. It's not one that I would see myself playing by choice, but I think their lobby system really adds an interesting element, and I think that's something that is going to be interesting as time goes on. Like, throwing in a bunch of modes into that online lobby, the party match, having basketball, having volleyball, having the skill shot, to me that makes the game seem so much more diverse as opposed to if you're just playing one-on-one. But will people grow so tired of that mode that they abandon, or those modes, that they abandon the party lobby? Either way, I think that it was really fun. I have still some issues, but in general, I would say I am higher on ARMS now than I was before the weekend.
All right, Jake?
I'd say about the same. I spent most of the time just getting used to it, trying out different characters, playing around with the different control schemes. I like the Pro Controller better. But yeah, and I guess for me, I will think I'll find myself playing more of the one-on-one matches, like Zach said, and maybe they have the party lobby system in place so that you can, if you get tired of playing one-on-one matches, you go to party, and when you get tired of party, you go back to ranked matches, or if you have, your brother or something playing with you and you want to just play party modes or something like that. But I still feel like I need more time with it, and I need the full game, because there's like different character abilities, and like I felt like everybody was just trying to like win or like figure things out. So like there's a bunch of random grabbing, and like people weren't playing as if like their life depended on it. It felt like, so it was hard to get a full feel for the game. And I found myself being less reliant on character abilities and more the arm choices, which once the full game comes out and you can switch up any arms with any character, that'll open up a lot more opportunity to test things out with different character abilities and different arms and things like that. So I am about the same hype level, even after playing and getting more of the feel for it. And again, just waiting for the full package to come out so you can sort of craft your own fighter in the style that you want, and then really get good with that type of thing. So yeah, and I guess in my head, it's almost like a Smash Brothers endeavor, where sometimes I have a great time with it, and like it feels like skillful and good, and there's sometimes where it's like so frustrating because it seems so random. But again, I think time will tell for me in terms of how much of a future investment I put into the game.
To me, it's two different play styles, right? You can take it like super like hardcore, and you can like figure out like exactly what like motion control like actual motion does what. Like, there are some people that are just very, very good at the game. I don't know if playing the Test Punch you guys came across anyone that was just like vastly superior than you are, but I played like one or two where I just like I could barely like even hit anyone because they were either like so like proficient with the blocking or with the dodging, and they were able to time everything so much better than I could. And I consider myself pretty good at the game, but there are people who are obviously just more skilled. So there is a level of skill there that I don't quite have yet, and not like it'll take some time to hone it, right? I don't think anybody's gonna be like amazing at the game right away. Like the first day of the Test Punch, like Zach wasn't super keen on the game, but you know he warmed up to it a little bit as he played, as he was able to get more comfortable with the controls, as you're able to find a fighter that you prefer, things of that nature. So I think it's a game that you're not gonna maybe even like love right away, but if you do give it a chance and you try to discover whatever little like nuance there is there, it will eventually click, I think. So
yeah, and I think it's like it's a little bit of like a dichotomy, because it's like, okay, is this game so skill based, like you mentioned, that like, okay, you have to practice and prepare and learn and, you know, be so precise, or is it made that way so that it can be just more like, okay, throw these arms out, some of them are slow, some of them are fast, some bounce, some home, some fire a beam, because they want it to be more party based, and maybe they have created the perfect blend where it can be sort of that motion control, just, you know, flinging your fist around, fun party game, and also there's a depth if you bring in the Pro Controller and you want to, you know, get really specific, that there is more nuance to the aiming. And I started to learn more of the aiming, more of the curving, more of the angling of your throws. I feel like that is easier done on the Pro Controller personally than relying on motion control. And that's not to say the motion control is not accurate. It's just I feel you have more speed and more hardcore ability to manipulate the character quicker with the Pro Controller.
Yeah, and I think that's where I am a little bit uncertain on how complex, because the mechanics are, because there is that level of depth with so many combinations of arms with characters, and every arm, they say, has a different punching speed, a different punching length, and a different amount of damage. So clearly they put a lot of time and effort into the customization, and even the way it's thrown out, if it has a natural curve to it, if it bounces like the Blorb, all the elemental abilities that are thrown in there. So clearly there's a ton of effort gone into that aspect of it, which makes me think that there has to be at least a similar level of effort gone into the mechanics. You know what I mean? Like they wouldn't have made, at least I don't think, they wouldn't have spent that much time making it that customizable to each person, and then have really simplistic mechanics, at least in my head. So I feel like there is more to the game, and I think we all need a little bit more time to figure that out, at least personally. Because even in the Test Punches, like, you just want to win. So like, I kind of, and this is an issue I have with a lot of games, I get like frantic, and so I'm just like throwing both punches a lot, and like, oh gosh, they threw me, so I have to do more damage. As opposed to like, if you take a step back, calm down, and really focus on using your jumps, your dodges, your dashes, your character abilities, each arm having its own individual type of punch. So again, I think that I just need more time with it to see how, because even like when you play like Super Smash Brothers, there's people who just play it and have a great time, and then there's people who are like hardcore, like they have their like they're so much better than everybody else. Even if they're in like an 8-player match, they're like absolutely destroying everybody because they understand how to block and evade and counter so well. So I definitely have faith in the Nintendo's developer power, that they definitely it is more mechanically sound and not as flaily as it comes off sometimes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the magic of it. Like you said, like people just play Smash Brothers in a party environment, and they have fun. But there's also like the very hardcore melee Evo like side of Smash Brothers, where like people are so hardcore. So maybe ARMS is trying to strike that, where if you put like a lot of time into it, you're gonna obviously have an advantage over everybody else, but you can still just have like a really good time.
And I guess their modes sort of mimic that. Like, you specifically have a party mode, and you specifically have a ranked match mode called ranked match. It's not called one-on-one, it's called ranked. So like they clearly want to have a diverse pool of like separate people on each one.
So it does seem like we're all like pretty positive on it. I want to also ask, like, everybody just pick one character that you like the most out of the Test Punch.
I was surprised that I liked Ribbon Girl. I think being able to go up and down really quickly is important, and I really liked her arms. Again, like for me, I was more focused on which arms did I like better than the character abilities. And I really liked her wind poppers and her Slapamander. I was also surprised that I like Mechanica a decent amount. Her weird like whammy hammer is very interesting. But yeah, those are the two that stood out for me. But if I had to go with one, Ribbon Girl really shocked me.
All right, Zach.
Yeah, I thought Springman and Ribbon Girl surprisingly were really interesting to use, and it is kind of cool how different arms seem better suited for different modes. I found myself enjoying and being more successful with some of the more non-straightforward arms in the multi-fighter fights, whereas I preferred more of the straightforward arms in the one-on-one. So like Springman's basic gloves or Ribbon Girl's Sparkies were, to me, my arm of choice in one-on-one, but I liked using more of the boomerang style, more of the like Min-Min's chakrams or whatever those are called, in the like one-on-ones or the two-on-twos, because then you have more chance to sort of like hit in a side swipe manner. But yeah, Springman and Ribbon Girl, it's hard for me to pick one, but I really ended up liking both of them quite a bit. I do think that the faster fighters, at least in this test punch, were far more successful than the slower fighters. And I don't know if that's something that's going to pan out like once all the characters are unlocked and once people get more time with it, but it definitely seemed like, as of right now, the Ninjaras, the Springmans, the Ribbon Girls, the Min-Mins had the advantage.
Yeah, Ninjara is my one. I liked him the best. He's so quick, and his little vanishing act that he has going on. To me, Ninjara was the one I gravitated towards the most. He's not going to take away from my bark and bite, or bite and bark. I forget which way it goes.
Bite and bark.
Yeah, that's still going to be my main. I love that character so much. Just using him at the event, like I had a ton of fun with it. So that's probably going to be my main. But for the test punch, Ninjara was where it was at. Game modes, I think we all prefer the 1v1. We do not like the volleyball. None of us like that one. It's okay when it's 1v1, but 2v2 volleyball is weird. The two...
And there's just some elements of that. Like, the idea isn't bad, but it's just the thing of like, okay, the ball is on a timer, so you can't keep it going forever, which I get, and it eventually drops. But the more frustrating one is that at the end of the match, the ball instant drops. So there are plenty of times where it's 3-4, 2-1, 1-0, and then it ends up being a tie, not because you lost, but just because the match ran out, and rather than it keeping the score as it is, it adds a point at the very end. If they patch that out, it would make it far less frustrating for me.
Yeah, for sure. Do we have like any like other thoughts about the test arc? Because like we've talked about it at length, like during our streams and now here.
Yeah.
So
I want to ask you, Gabe. Like, how do you? One question that I think both me and Jake have had is like, okay, how is this going to pan out when you can mix and match all the combinations? Because they very specifically chose 3 arms for the characters, and they very specifically chose sets that were diversified and different. So Helix's set of 3 felt vastly different than Min-Min's set of 3, which is smart for the test punch. But how is it going to change things when they have access to the entire arsenal of arms? Is that going to mess with not only the feel and the fun of the game, but also maybe who is a top tier choice versus who is a lower tier choice?
Yeah, I mean it's tough to tell because at the event, like we were still locked into these 3 for each character. Like,
gotcha.
We didn't have so that's something I'm curious about myself. I would imagine that there's gonna be some balance to it. I don't know that any like one arm is like drastically better than the other ones. They're all different. Like there's some that do like fire damage, some that like freeze you, so they don't do as much like actual damage. Like they're different, yeah, but I don't know how much different they're all gonna be. There's like 8,000 combinations, something crazy like that. So it's gonna end up just being like a preference thing. Like I know for me, I'm probably gonna gravitate towards the faster arms. Just because like I like the quickness and the fast reflex of it all, so that's something that's hard to tell. And I like that they left some stuff open for actual release. They didn't show us all the characters. We didn't get to play basketball or skill shot on here. We didn't get to try like any of the 3 like new quote unquote characters. So Kid Cobra still is something that a lot of people haven't played. And of course, my favorite character that no one's played as, Twintel, the fan favorite. Yeah. No one's played as. So they're leaving enough. The 1v100, the 1 versus 100 thing, whatever the final boss. Like there's still enough, and that's what I liked about the test punch. It didn't give away too much.
I'm also very curious. Well, I'm actually excited to play one-on-one with like us 3, and see how that goes. Because there were times, even like 4-person free for all, that I enjoyed it. It could get very unbalanced very quickly, especially with the 3 people if one person just took the time off or 2 people ganged up. But there were glimpses of time when it was like incredibly fun to like switch your target and like like, okay, I'm gonna get this person. Oh, that person just got grabbed, so I'm gonna go, get a better angle on this other person and try to hit them, out of their next super or whatever. And maybe like I thought that was a very interesting dynamic as opposed to just being squared off against one person like you are in the one-on-ones, to like have to be able to like switch targets, use the curvature of your arms, and like use your positioning to get the best angle on people. So I think if like playing that with like your friends or something, I want to see how that feels, because that was like an interesting mode that I like the mechanics of it. It just got stupid when people played it unfairly and tipped the balance in one direction.
Yeah, I feel like ARMS is more defensive than I expected. I feel like the worst rounds I had were when I tried to go like, I'm going to hit him, I'm going to throw, I'm going to punch, I'm going to throw, I'm going to punch. And I feel like there is much more of a dance to it in terms of dodge, and looking for your opportunity. To me, it's much more of a counter game than I was thinking. And maybe that should have been obvious, but it is interesting how like defense and evasion are such critical skills in order to be successful. I do think like it's nice that it's very unique, and maybe it does fit into a very similar Splatoon slot of being like a game that can be both casual and hardcore. I did want to ask you guys, how do you feel about them just sort of throwing all the control modes in there together? Like, to me, there is a definite difference in the matches of motion control versus the matches of pro control.
Gabe feels the opposite though, so I mean, I guess it's personal preference. And I mean, even me to you, like, you like using the buttons for punching, and I like using ZR and ZL for punching. So I mean, I guess it's just player choice, and you should test out what feels the best to you.
None of us tried single Joy-Con, so like, I mean, that's another thing.
But how do you feel about them all being, lopped in together in the same lobbies?
I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters at all. I think someone that like plays motion controls exclusively and like understands the I hate to keep using the word, but like the nuances in doing that, like they're just as viable, and they have just as much of a chance as someone.
And from my perspective, it seems easier to do like punching and curving your punches in motion, whereas it seems easier to maneuver it's easier to control your arms with motion and easier to control your character with the like classic control schemes. I could be wrong, but that's just how I felt coming out of it. So I mean, I feel like there's
enough advantage and disadvantages.
Yeah, people are going to gravitate towards whatever they feel comfortable with, and if someone's comfortable with motion, they're going to be just fine.
And I think it's too early to say like, oh, like motion control is totally gimped, because that's how they showed it off. So clearly, it is fully functional.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like it does also depend on the mode, because those one-on-one-on-ones or the two-on-twos especially are much more chaotic, and you get grabbed, then you get grabbed, then you get grabbed, you get grabbed out of a grab, and whereas one-on-one, is much more like, okay, your skill versus their skill. Grabs seem to be like the go-to thing for everyone, and I'm curious.
It's a fighting. It's a fighting game.
Yeah, but I feel like people it didn't register in their heads that you can, if you just single arm punch, it knocks it out. Like I think people were like, oh my god, I gotta like dodge or block or something, which doesn't really work against a grab. You have to just single punch arm. Like I think people didn't like that. Will just come with time.
Yeah,
I think also it's going to be one of those things that like the equivalent of button mashing in ARMS is going to be like grab mashing. Like that is kind of the like.
But again, I think once people get skilled, like you're gonna be able to jump over them or knock them down with a single arm punch, and like it'll be nullified.
Yeah, I'm not.
The main way I got grabbed though was like, okay, if you make a grab or you make a punch, especially from distance, it takes a while to reel that back in, and your opponent has a chance then a free grab basically that you can't knock down.
That's why I go only one arm at a time instead of two, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just happy that we've all like come around to it. I never didn't like the game, but for the first day, like Zach really wasn't into it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that he came around. I'm glad that Jake's enjoying it. I still feel the way I feel about it. I think it's a very like strong addition to the lineup, and I think once people continue to give it a chance, it'll grow on them more, because it is like this weird, fighter with the over the back camera. Like I understand it's a weird concept, and like it's a little goofy.
Weird concepts are good though. It mixes things up.
Yeah,
it seems like the general reception is really like positive. Like people that did try it out for the first time seem like, wow, this is actually something that like I could definitely get into, and definitely it's unique enough but has enough substance underneath, and that's kind of like where Splatoon found its strength, right? Was being different, but yeah. I'm very pleased with it. I'm very looking forward to next weekend. Very excited to know what you guys think of ARMS. Let us know your experience with the TestPunch in the comments down below. Any thoughts you have, any pros, cons. If you came out of this more excited, less excited, what you're concerned about, what you're excited for. And we will be back next week with more TestPunch action. It is coming again Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the game is 2 weeks out.
The following week, yeah.
Well, 2.5 weeks, I guess. Yeah. No, because it's the 16th. So
okay.
E3 will be a blur, and ARMS will be here before you know it. Until then, though, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. Make sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all the latest and greatest from Switch and its games. Our opinions and takes on them. We'll bring them to you. Until then, though, for myself, Jake, and Gabe, SwitchForce out.